Sisi kupata ile petition yao ya kwamba wanataka kumuondoa gavana. Hapana.
The MCAs have been at loggerheads with the executive demanding the release of ward development funds as Mwangaza remains hesitant, intimating that she'll not be intimidated to steal from the public coffers. Kevin Mutai, NTV in Mombasa.
All right, and that's the latest development from that part of the country. Well, time to look at what's in the dailies. I'm not alone in studio. Remember, today is Tuesday, State of the Nation. We do have Wakili Danstan Omari, lawyer, political analyst. A very good morning, Wakili. Karibu sana. Once again from where we left it last week. And also joining us this morning, Professor Alfred Omenya, urban development expert and also political and governance commentator and analyst. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us this morning. And in a short while, we'll be seeing Ishmael Nyaribo, also lawyer and political analyst, in a moment joining us. And I think he's just joined us. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Asante Sana.
Karibu Sana, and just in time, time to look at what we do have on the very front page of the Daily Nation, the man on the spotlight, that is the former DCI boss, Kinoti, man on the cross in a nasty feud. As the new regime probes alleged excesses of officers under him, the former head of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations looks like the man who will perhaps carry the cross of the sins of the Uhuru presidency in a political tit-for-tat game that has been gathering pace since the swearing-in of William Ruto. That is on pages 2 and 3, the hunter becoming the hunted, or is it the other way around? Going for the jugular, Nordin Haji, the head of public prosecutions, has hinted at possible arresting and charging of Kinoti over the Gachagua case, saying the former DCI boss was a colleague and, quoting, "I don't want to take advantage of the situation, but if the law was breached, that person will face the law." And of course, we'll be taking a look at the full in-depth report there on the pages 2 and 3. But let me begin with Wakili Danstan Omari. So this is the latest. The DPP had an exclusive interview with one of the media stations on Sunday, and it was more of an, an all-telling interview talking about how the DCI undermined the criminal cases, corruption cases that were brought forth, evidence, forged papers. I mean, what do you make of this?
Well, I did watch the interview. I did listen it very carefully. The DPP was right as per that context. But in terms of the legal threshold of what he said is a question of evidence. Because the DPP is saying George Kinoti has not said anybody who commits an offense in this country then must be charged. And that person, the lawyers will defend him. But for now, I'll tell the country for free. George Kinoti was the director of criminal investigation.
Correct.
And up his rank was the Inspector General Police. George Kinoti was not the Inspector General Police. The command of the police under Article 245, everybody who takes responsibility of actions must be the Inspector General Police. Above the Inspector of Police, there is the Minister or the Cabinet Secretary for Interior. And that goes to the Cabinet. After Cabinet, there is what is called the National Council, the National Security Council, chaired by the President and the Deputy President. Then, that is the final organ that deals with security matters in this country. Trivializing matters that George Kinoti is almost rank number 5 from that command position that I've given. So really, the question is,
but he is the authority.
I'm saying, all these people, George Kinoti does not have a security of office. He can be sacked. The Director of Criminal Investigation doesn't have or doesn't enjoy the security and tenure of office. The Inspector General does. So that is the disconnect that Kenyans want to go. The Director General takes directions as issued just like a constable takes directions as issued by the chief inspector or the OCS. So the question that everybody is asking, how do we deal with the position of the Director of Criminal Investigation Department? On the other hand, the DPP enjoys security of tenure, a constitutional office that nobody can tell him. Actually, under Article 157, the DPP is the only entity that can instruct the Inspector General of Police. Therefore, what comes up is Kenyans now need to discuss how do we then, if Kenyans want all operational matters that fall under the DCI to be dealt with, then we will have to get a constitutional tenure to that office. Then you can say that he cannot obey any law of order. The police work through orders as the command chain comes, from up to bottom. So, I've had the DPP raise this issue about George Kinoti, and one thing that the DPP was right is that the DPP, Mr. Haji, said, if evidence is produced, of culpability of George Kinoti, then George Kinoti will be charged. Where is that in the Constitution? It is provided for that the only person above any criminal prosecution in this country is the president, only for the time he's serving. We cannot take William Ruto, Dr. William Ruto, His Excellency, to any criminal trial now. But upon exit, just like President Uhuru has left, then he can be, President Uhuru now is ripe for any criminal action. So, anybody who has evidence, and the defense teams are always ready, the courts are ready, anybody who has evidence on culpability of one George Kinoti or any officer, then that evidence should be provided, and that person that is indicted shall be arrested. So for now, I think it is more of politics between the two officers. There is no tangible evidence to that effect.
But then what does this mean, Prof, of the entire criminal justice systems when you have these two men who, one is former, one is still serving, who are serving, you know, there was a tiff within the tenure over the past 4 years, but they are very critical in the fight against corruption. They're very critical in the criminal justice structure. What does it mean when, you know, one of them indicts the other with regard to, you know, forgeries and fake documents and all these things?
Zainab, it's quite unfortunate that this is coming out to the public, because these two officers are at the center of criminal justice system in the country, actually.
Right.
And they work in collaboration. DPP needs DCI. The sort of accusation, the second thing is that the sort of accusation they're making in the media then leaves the public with no confidence in these two officers. The question we are asking is that how have these officers been operating in the past?
Right.
And in fact, they're starting to show us the reasons behind very, very ineffective criminal justice system in the country. We've been asking, really, I mean, that these cases, that some of them committed in broad daylight with, I mean, where you'd actually think that evidence is obvious. And then, you know, the cases hung around the court, sometimes they're actually thrown out. And what is becoming clear is that there are several issues here. I see issues of political interference with our criminal justice system, which is very, very unfortunate. It actually means that this entire system is serving political interests. That is very worrying. The second thing that one sees in this is gross incompetence of the occupants of this office. Not just, you know, Kinoti. In fact, even the DPP has also been accused of actually criminal issues bordering on you know, on crimes. Yes, I think that also leaves a lot of you know, things to be decided. That I mean, if we are talking about forgeries, if you're talking about
trumped up charges against people, if you're talking about shoddy investigations
Right.
At this particular level, then where does this leave our criminal justice system? In fact, what this shows us, what this tells us really is that this system has not been functioning. The only thing that is happening currently is that there are many people who are part of that, who are actually affected directly by the investigations and the prosecution. And many of them happen to be in power now, so they can do something about it. And that is why these two officers are bringing the stink. But what you should actually tell Kenyans, which is very, very worrying, is that broken criminal justice system. No wonder they cannot even deal, with very straightforward criminal cases. They just hang around there. In fact, this exposes them, and this tells us what has been happening, behind the scenes between the office of Kinoti and Haji, which is very unfortunate.
Wakili Ishmael, what do you read from this and the timing itself?
Yeah, thank you, Zainab. This is a very, very sad situation, by the way. If I was in the presidential advisory team, or even the team advising Noordin Haji, the DPP, my view would be totally different, in the sense that Noordin Haji is actually wielding so much powers under Article 157 of our Constitution, where he does not take instructions from anyone in matters investigations. I mean, in matters prosecutions. He is entirely, is entirely liable for this kind of conduct. Look, I do not even know, but suppose Kinoti forged papers. Suppose, as they say. So what level of quality assurance is in the DPP's office to ensure that? Because it is him who can authorize that a person must be charged. So what quality assurance does he have within
he says he relied on good faith between the two officers.
Then there is no need for Article 157, because he is an independent prosecutor. He does not take instructions. In fact, what he's telling us is Uhuru was instructing him to be charging some people who he doesn't like. And then, how far will it go, Zainab? How far will it go if George Kinoti decides to hell with all this, everyone for himself, God for us all? If he should say how many instructions, I mean, how many directives did he get before, forget Gachagua now, the deputy president, how many other, phone calls did he get from everyone? This is the simplest way to disintegrate the country. This is how those failed states actually start to create groupings. Now, a lot of people who trust in Kinoti, a lot of people who trust in Noordin Haji will take different views. So, in my humble view, this is a waste of time. It is important for Noordin Haji under Article 157 to focus on the crimes that are in the country. Even if he picks crimes this morning only, I mean, which happened overnight, he will be able to do his work. But to start, I think, carrying, vindictive investigations, trying to reach out, for just to fulfill, political expediency for his masters, this is actually wrong. It's extremely wrong. And we said it last time here. We said it here that matter security should be taken for what they are. There are criminals all over the world. I mean, Jesus said there will be sin all over the world until he comes again. So people are creative, in their own way. So it is really wrong, actually, if you allow us to express ourselves, to follow up a man who has been on top of investigations and to try to cook him up. Not necessarily because I mean, they should have waited. Why are they saying there was forgery? They should wait and investigate and go to court so that we can see. So I think this is really quite a hogwash. This is a completely, a personal vendetta. And again, Noordin Haji and Kinoti had a big problem before even, this matters.
There was already a fallout, right?
Yeah. We have something called Internal Affairs Unit, isn't it? Noordin Haji is, Kinoti is a police officer. They should take him through the internal, due diligence to understand exactly what did he forge. Did he actually forge? But, coming to prosecute the matters in the news on media, and you have powers under the Constitution shows that there's bad faith.
Right. Let's just take a look at what these allegations are much deeper. So the DPP says there was forgery of documentary evidence, pressure on the office of the DPP through the media, pressure on investigators, coercion and threats, lack of good faith, lack of integrity and professionalism in the office of the DCI, and DCI not providing evidence in court cases. On the other hand, the ex-DCI boss George Kinoti alleges, which is against the DPP, using unorthodox means to develop the interagency terrorism guidelines. I think it's one of the biggest issues that have come out. Forging personal details of 2 senior police officers during a meeting in Naivasha. Hiring a faceless professional consultant during the drafting and formulation of the guidelines. Faking signatures of police officers. Perjury and fraud. Where does this leave us when you have, you know, these men, of course, like what Prof is saying, at the center of this, you know, the criminal justice system, you know, trading accusations like this at the base? They're supposed to serve for the interest of, you know, public.
You know, one thing, Zainab, boy, I don't want to delve much into it. Much of those allegations,
Right.
I'm on record that I have filed around 18 petitions against the DPP.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to delve so much on it.
Right.
But all that we are saying, and I want to come it very clearly, is that this government seems to be still politically looking or witch hunting the government of retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. The whole of it, the story of the campaign of Kenya Kwanza was premised on the excesses of the security apparatus.
All right.
They still are moving that direction, and we are seeing quite a number of issues in the security sector coming up, which raises a question, and I raised this question yesterday in another forum, that are we now likely to have a police force that is recruited that serves for 5 years? After the government, the new government comes in, the police must go home, then we have a new police force coming in. The reason as to why the framers of the Constitution left the police under the executive. The police is just a tool to be used by the executive, is because in running a country, security is key in running a country. Now, when we are dealing with real open issues about security, about who killed who, about what it is, about disbanding the special unit, because you've heard the president in a church service. I was watching NTV in a church service in Kericho, completely called the police killers. When the commander-in-chief, the head of the police, calls his troops killers, how do Kenyans deal with that? I also watched on NTV because it's my favorite channel.
That's good.
It is, and everybody knows that I watch NTV TV. When I was watching it at Mashujaa Day, again the head of state in a speech still moves with that direction. The question I want us to move with my colleagues is, what is the net effect to the citizens in Kayole? What is the net effect to the citizens in West Mugrango? What is the net effect to the citizens outside NTV offices in downtown? A surge of crime. It's actually a surge of crime, and I've been told, I'm not supposed to be reported to, but I've been told as I was coming here, gunshots are now the norm of the day. Because the head of state and the deputy have gone to war with the security apparatus. Who will defend the citizens? Because that should be the bigger picture. Nurdin and Kinoti are people who are well protected. They are people who are well remunerated by the citizens of the slums. How do we deal with our security when, from George Kinoti to the Inspector General, to the DPP, to the President, to the Cabinet, to the Deputy President, the war is against security apparatus? That, to me, is the biggest issue that Kenyans, when we are seeing that there are killers within the police. Up to what level or what year are we going to probe? Because we are not only going to look at two issues and isolate the many challenges that have been there from 2013 to date, or from 1963 to date. So my view could be this type of talk was uncalled for. This type of political witch hunt is uncalled for, because you remember the Kenya Kwanza campaign was very categorical that the security apparatus were being used against them. It is now very clear it is them again who have turned other security apparatus against the remnants of the security apparatus. So the security is eating itself. Countries worldwide say governments eat their own children. Now we have the security forces called the internal affairs eating other police units within the... So in my view, there should be a truce, and I've seen the president with IPOA. I saw the president yesterday in IPOA in State House through NTV, and I hope sobriety campaigns have come to an end. Let them deal with security matters away from NTV. Let them deal with these matters at the Ministry of Interior, the way I've seen Duale dealing with these matters of the Jeshi outside us. Kenyans, we are alone, and we are going to suffer in a very short time.
But you must agree this is of public interest.
It is of public interest. What is the consequence?
All right.
Me, I'm only looking at the consequence. I'm telling you, Zainab, today I represent quite a number of police officers. No police officer will ever shoot. No police officer will ever give a command in where robbery with violence, carjacking, abduction, where violence, criminals have very sophisticated guns. Terrible, sophisticated guns. If we are now telling the police, arrest a terrorist, the terrorist will come here. By the time anybody is trying to arrest, all of them are dead. So let us not trivialize security matters because of political issues.
All right.
We know George Kinoti was not for Kenya Kwanza.
Okay, Dunstan, my hand is up.
Okay. All right. So let me get then Ishmael, then I'll come back.
No, let me tell you, my brother, sorry. You know, actually, Dunstan has touched exactly when it came to terrorists. Will, you know, just a minute. You know, what Kinoti is actually alleging is using unorthodox means to develop interagency, what? Terrorism guidelines. Then you see number 3, he's saying hiring faceless professional in a consultant during the drafting and formulation of the guidelines. We're professionals here. I mean, we can be hired to really be engaged in this kind of, but there's a, this is an allegation, yes, I agree, but it's what the investigator, top investigator, is saying against Nuruddin Haji.
Yes.
That itself should be chaotic. I don't think anybody in State House should take us to actually look at these issues as a public. We are talking about terrorism that is not an issue only in East Africa, but in the heart of US, in Europe, in all over the world. And I think if we go this way, it is honestly the starting point of failures that will be imminent in the Ruto administration. And we don't say this in bad faith. We say this for those who want to listen. Leave security issues alone, deal with them in the boardroom, and get a final solution. Yes.
Right, Prof. And I mean also, Prof, when you come into this, the issue of accountability. These two gentlemen are inseparable when it comes to the issues of accountability and anything that might be found cropping up on the criminal, prosecutions that have been already there conducted and is concerned.
You see, Zainab, Kenyans are watching these people. Kenyans are watching these people, and they've been watching them from elections till now. And Kenyans are seeing a pattern of action. Kenyans can read and make conclusions. where was DPP making some of these statements? I mean, when Kenyans see DPP in State House, when DPP comes and makes accusation about the DCI, who had been accused actually by this regime of witch hunting them, that led to his own resignation. Kenyans are seeing a pattern. Kenyans are seeing the cases that have been dropped, and a lot of those cases are for people in this regime. They are for people who have actually been elected in this regime. So when Kenyans get this sort of information outside there, what would be the logical conclusions of Kenyans? The logical conclusion is that the investigative arm of the criminal justice system and the prosecution arm of the criminal justice system is politicized beyond repair. In fact, DPP should save Kenyans a lot of flack and resign. What has been accused of here, really, as far as I'm concerned, makes public confidence in his office, to be questionable. Really, if he was a man of integrity, he should go away with Kinoti, as it were, rather than spending a lot of time, prosecuting the differences, in the public domain, and clearly actually trying to appease the president, and this may even be an overreach. And then on the other hand, of course, I mean, castigating the DCI, around issues that should have raised earlier. That criminal justice system was there. If you had issues with Kinoti, weren't there mechanisms of actually dealing with those through the system that you actually have in place? And secondly, by generating these allegations in public, like any other politician, what is he intending to achieve? If indeed the DCI committed all these crimes, there is, like we're saying here, there are mechanisms of investigating him, there are mechanisms of taking him to court so that he's answerable. He's not, the DCI, and he's resigned, in fact, is a normal mwananchi. The DCI is not above the law. And Kinoti should, Haji should use his good office, not for politics, but if he's keen on helping Kenyans, and if it's indeed true that the allegations he's making is actually correct, then in fact, he should actually use that same criminal justice system to ensure that this is corrected, rather than bringing us to the theater of the absurd in the public domain. So what does he expect Kenyans to do about it?
All right. Prof, I think we're going to have to take a break on that note. With just 44 minutes past 6 a.m., we still have much more to cover. The hashtag we're using this morning, as always, is MLive. NTV Talk to Us at NTV Kenya, at Zainab Ismail, Dunstan Omari, Ishmael Nyaribo, and Professor Alfred Omenya are with me here in the studio. Let's take that quick break. We'll be back. Stay with us.
No, but where did you write the answer, kijana?
Ndio hii hapa chini number 6.
Lo, salale kijana yangu, umeandika kwamba the square root of 72 is Jesus as the final answer.
But it's true, he does.
Kijana, he is you. C-R-E, bwana. What is this in number 6?
Oh, there the teacher asked the wrong question.
That is why number 5, you deleted the question and asked your own question.
Ni mwalimu aliset vitu wa kufunza, so nikamcorrect.
Maajabu.
Yes.
To get report book by Skiza Na Nation and Flacco, dial star 812 star 807 hash. Skiza Na Nation.
It's the headquarters of good vibes. So I should just kneel and begin to call on Jesus because I'm a bishop.
You know, Dr. Kingori, yes, you sound like a street fighter. Where did you grab it? Unataka noma.
Kingori, let me tell you something. Mimi mtu angenipata sayo nikiwa first year. Angeangukia bibi mzuri.
You know, they always say smart women, where to catch them is with love.
Kingori, I love how your suit looks. I love you in a suit. I love you in a t-shirt.
As in any example, you actually mean that?
Unataka kunioa? Naifungua akili ya msee ama kichwa ya msee ukapata vile watu husema huyu jamaa ana akili.
Tunaweza toa nyama kwa huko nyuma tuweke kwa
kifua. Sisi mtu anakuwa na roho chafu sana. Na ukidive inahesabiwa?
Si ndio, ukiwin udive win si umewin.
Hiyo ndio tizi unafaa upige. Napiganga tu tizi ya 90 meters ya kwanza, alafu nikifika 90 meters na fly. Every Friday on NTV 7:30 p.m.
Gabriel's working on filing a case against your dad, Carlos, and he's been snooping around. He now suspects it was your dad who ordered Victoria's death. Gabriel can't destroy me.
What if it's him you need to destroy? I just got a subpoena. How did Suraman find out that I was investigating him? I haven't even formally filed a case against him yet.
Here, see that bruise right there? If you study those marks even further, someone had gripped her arm, causing that bruise right there. So the attacker must have been dragging her. You think you're tough, huh?
Forever my love.
On my dark marks, I've tried everything from A to Z, even vitamin C, but hardly any results. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one, with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using the #1 Lumina 630 from Nivea.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is M Live, State of the Nation. Let's move forward from that story on the DPP DCI TIF. Let's get to another report here. UDA locks Kenya Kwanza partners out of Parliamentary Commission. All the 4 slots allocated to the ruling alliance were taken up by President William Ruto's party, that is UDA, which has bagged all the 4 slots allocated to the Kenya Kwanza Alliance in the Parliamentary Service Commission, locking out its partners. However, the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition, One Kenya Kwanza Coalition, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition, I beg your pardon, has distributed its 3 slots to its 3 main affiliate parties, that is ODM, Jubilee, and Wiper. The list Kenya Kwanza has submitted to Parliament for approval on Wednesday this week has the MPs. We have Faith Gitao from Nyandarua, Mohamed Ali Nyali, and the ladies and gentlemen you can see on the screen, Mohamed Ali from the National Assembly, and Senators Joyce Korir nominated, and John Kinyo from Laikipia. The Azimio list has Nyamira Senator Okongo Mogini, Sirisi MP John Waluke, and Mavoko Member of Parliament Patrick Makau. PSC has 11 members, with the Speaker of the National Assembly as chairman and the Senate clerk as its secretary. Article 127 of the Constitution provides for the manner of constituting the commission. It states that 7 members shall be appointed by Parliament from among its members, of whom 4 shall be nominated equally from both houses of the party or coalition of parties forming the national government, and at least 2 should be women. So there you have it. Ishmael, UDA has positioned itself quite well in the PSC, taking up all those 4 slots allocated to it. What do you think?
You know, it's the same thing we were discussing. We were also seeing on media about the Azimio. You know, one major party, the ODM, picking up all the slots. You know, these politicians, they are the same. So you can see that the ruling party wants to be the ones with the whole cake, and they said they would be fair, they would distribute it, you know, fairly, you know. But now that they are in power, they are actually saying, no, 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 no. What is important, we have to take it all. So I don't think it's a proper democratic way to lead. The best thing would be to allow all the coalition partners to feel part and parcel of leadership. This thing of saying we are the powerful, we are the ones who brought in all the numbers, so it is us to decide, is killing our democracy, especially party politics democracy.
Right. Prof?
Yeah, you know, I find politicians fascinating, because things that you consider common sense just doesn't seem to be, you know, very common and available to them. In fact, the cases highlight highlighted there of Kenya and Gitau, who are actually
from the
neighbors
same region, right?
In terms of constituencies. And you'd imagine that UDA had never seen the map of Kenya while making such a decision. Yeah, the point is that, and this is my own belief, that when you're the stronger brother, you must ensure that the younger ones, the weaker ones, are all catered for before you eat. But it doesn't apply in politics. In politics, if you are the head of the home, then you eat all the food. And if any food remains, then your wife and children, you know, can actually partake. Yes, I mean, it's a bit of, it's amusing almost. As Ishmael is saying, the other day it was ODM in Senate, and it's interesting, one of the people who made a lot of noise about this was Okongo Mugeni, who pointed it out that, you know, ODM was hogging all the positions in Azimio.
Right.
And UDA was looking good, and just 2 weeks down the line, it is the other way around. It is UDA hogging this. Yes, I think really politicians need to be sensible. They're all together in this anyway. They could have as well have just been in one party. The coalitions are effectively that. Yeah, and a sign of goodwill, particularly to the smaller members of the coalition, you know, is good for the democracy. It's also good for optics.
Also for political parties, I believe, and coalitions, Wakili Dunstan, is it a tough balancing act for these political parties and coalitions to ensure that at the end of it all, we have, you know, regional balance, diversity, you know, even ahead of 2027, just to make sure that you have all your eggs in one basket?
You know, first, let me congratulate Senior Council Senator, my Senator Okongo Mugeni, for having gotten this job to go to the Parliamentary Service Commission.
Right.
ODM had this habit. ODM, and that is the reason why they've never become, they have never formed government, because they always, when they are, after elections, they look inwards. Yes. We made noise here, and Congo made noise, everybody made noise. ODM listened. Azimio listened. Now they have been fair to their people. For UDA, this is not even the gravest mistake they have done. Under very firm instructions, I'll be heading to court. The history of this country, we have 2 cabinet secretaries from one constituency. Kandara. Waziri for finance, and the minister, the cabinet secretary for water. Same ward. And the president went to Kandara over the weekend. And the question Kenyans should be asking, out of 290 constituencies, one constituency produces 2 cabinet secretaries. Cabinet secretaries maximum are 22. So 20 are left to 289 constituencies. Is that the face of the Republic? As if that is not enough, now in the Parliamentary Service Commission. Right. Parliamentary Service Commission, one sister comes from Nyandarua. They are saying, it's not me saying, it is not me saying. They are saying the 2, one comes, that is, it's clear UDA settled on Mr. Kinyua and Mr. Gitau. Yes. All these people are coming from one ethnic community. PSC has only 11 slots. Yes. UDA has been given 4 or 5.
Should be 4.
4. 2 community has taken 2 slots, 50%. Where is the rest of the hustlers? And this is the question we are saying. The Kenya Kwanza team is degenerating into a tribal cocoon. Yet, the head of state is the head of state for everybody in this country. When you look at the other remaining people in the 4 slots, it is, they have given it to, that is Faith Gitau Nyandarua, Mohammed Ali Coast, a Coastarian one. Then we have Joyce Koril, who is nominated, and John Kinyua from Laikipia. What does that tell Kenyans?
Okay.
That this is not your government, this is not your government, and that is why Raila Odinga is saying that slowly Raila Odinga is getting some energy, because he's saying no tax without representation, without service. And this is a very serious issue. We should go to court to challenge that provision.
Yes.
The problem will be, what is the quality of these appointees? Right. You know, you realize, without going into details about these specific ones, if the head of state was inspired by the excellence, and the quality of the appointments, then you might even forget that these two are neighbors from Nyandarua or Murang'a or wherever. But they are not picked for the quality necessarily. And I am not pinpointing anybody. I'm trying to say generally, when you look at the appointments, they are just who can serve me better, who is good in coming up and following me all over the campaigns and all that. So if quality and merit was the bottom line, then we would not be raising issue.
Right. And let's move forward from that. Get to another story. I know Dunstan, conflict of interest here, but this is the other story. Indians murder, 9 to be held till Thursday. 9 police officers accused of killing 2 Indians and their taxi driver will remain in custody until Thursday, when the court will rule on whether they should be detained for another 30 days as investigations into the killings proceed. The state, through a miscellaneous application filed at the Kahawa Law Courts in Kiambu before Chief Magistrate Diana Mochache, argued that more time is needed to subject the suspects to a DNA test and analyze their mobile phones, which police claim incriminated the 9 in the murder plot and subsequent execution of the 3 in the Aberdare forest. You have Mohammed Said Sami and Zulfikar Ahmed, who are claimed to have traveled to Kenya during the electioneering period and were working with the digital media team allied to President William Ruto. So this is still an investigation the case is still in court. So the 3 were abducted outside a Nairobi hotel. Defense lawyer Dunstan Omari, who is here with us, argues that if the prosecution can be granted more days to file replying affidavits, it would also be fair for the accused to be released on favorable bail or bond terms. However, the court rejected your plea, Wakili.
Yes.
Pole.
No.
It's not happening.
You see, let me contextualize this, still with the Kinoti and debate.
Right.
These are small police officers. Can you imagine 2 drivers drive off the police vehicle, constables?
But that doesn't take it away.
I'm moving away. I'm building my case.
Correct.
So, the real issue in this matter is the total witch hunt. And I'll put it very clearly that it is a witch hunt, that the target is not the police officers that are there. The target is the Akina Kinoti, the IG and the others, and they are being told to frame the rest. But there is a very an angle that Zainab you have missed. The police in the affidavit are saying this was a multi-agency operation. And we raised that yesterday in the affidavit. That is why they are saying they need more time. We want, if it is a multi-agency team, the operations of multi-agency security apparatus involves the Kenya Army, involves the NIS, involves KRA, involves prisons, involves KWS, involves the judiciary, involves the ODPP, involves the DCI. So the questions we have, and that is why we are saying these questions we are asking in the public domain, that should be kept to the security apparatus. And that is now we are asking for what role did the military do, KDF do, over this abduction? Are those the questions that the government wants us to ask in court? What role did NIS do in this operation? Are those the questions the government wants citizens to understand, that in a multi-agency security? I don't want to talk very much, but let us, and the president must have heard my argument. He called IPOA yesterday. Because our argument is that let IPOA, an entity created by government, by the taxpayers, by the constitution, deal with excesses of the police. But if they proceed, the evidence we are seeking for are very, very hard. And because the questions that everybody is asking, when the head of state gives a statement that these are killers, is he coming to court to be a witness, to testify? Because Ishmael knows that that is the law. So I'm appealing that because they are watching from State House, that this matter should be withdrawn. They proceed with IPOA, let them be investigated. But we shall defend them.
Well, this is an a matter that is still in court and investigations are ongoing.
You remember the other time? Remember the other time I promised you, just a minute. Remember the other time I told you that I'm likely to be in the Arshad matter, the Pakistani matter, and I'm there. We are waiting for government to act on behalf against the 5 police officers. Then we'll still defend them.
Right. Yeah. All right. So just not to get much deeper into it, I don't know, Ishmael, Prof, if you have anything to add to this. This is from the whole, wider security issue. Maybe we can move on from there as we wait.
For me,
Ishmael. Right.
I look at the positive side about this story, apart from victimizing or arresting the 4 now, then later 8, now it's 9. The positive thing is they are using the court actually to do investigations. I mean, to get some more information. And then they are being careless to splash it on media every other day. But in terms of inquiring, were there visiting citizens of India who were actually killed? And from what I hear my colleague, alluding to is yes. And the affidavit suggesting that there was an operation by the multi-agencies and all that kind of thing. So yes, there were Indians who came here and they were murdered. So now who murdered them? I think the court will give its verdict. But in terms of being careless to say that a whole police unit is set up to slaughter people, it's actually careless coming from anybody.
Right. Prof?
Yeah, definitely. I think Kenyans, and it's not just the Indians who are murdered, Kenyans have been concerned and have raised issues time without number about extrajudicial killing.
Right.
And that's a matter of concern anyway. And this had been highlighted by this government about special units that were doing this, within the police force. Again, that is something that is within the power of government to investigate and eventually to take the correct actions as it actually were.
Right.
My own concern, and it's very unfortunate that these Indians were actually killed in Kenya, and I'm not just talking about Indians, but we are saying the same about Kenyans. But the issue is, where does this matter need to be resolved? And to me, that is the real concern, even with the earlier story that we're talking about, that coming in to explore, to prosecute, to execute security matters in the political domain, and also, in the public and in the media, leaves a lot to be desired. And I think this current government need to quickly retreat now that the government has been informed, and the ministers and so on, and start, taking our security quite seriously, and also start, executing some of these issues within the correct spaces, not in the public domain as they're doing it, because the optics, even for this case, really.
But once again, I'll still ask the public interest. Correct?
The optics here is like it is only one side, and people are lied to them who are getting justice.
All right, let's move forward. Okay, so follow the law in bid to raise taxes. Raila tells Ruto the government must involve Kenyans before introducing new taxation measures. That is Azimio la Umoja leaders saying. ODM leader Raila Odinga, the coalition's presidential candidate in the last general election, telling President William Ruto to call for public participation before increasing taxes. He accuses the head of state of trying to implement policies without going through the right legal channels, such as seeking the approval of parliament. He says Dr. Ruto has failed to consider the effect of the proposed taxes on Kenyans, whom he says are already overburdened. And Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, on the other hand, asking the Kenya Kwanza administration to implement its campaign promises, which included cushioning Kenyans from the high cost of essential commodities and famine instead of increasing taxes. Let me begin with Wakili Dunstan. All right, so you must follow the law in a bid to raise taxes, Raila tells the president, but the president is also very clear in insisting that his administration is taking this route. We're expanding the tax bracket and Kenyans must pay taxes.
I understand the president's realization too late that the promises he made must be funded by taxpayers' money. He cannot have his salary to run government. But the law must be followed in terms of any increase of taxation. Let me contextualize the question about NSSF. NSSF, a free-bench judge, has already pronounced itself that any attempt to raise money from 200 to any other amount of money is unconstitutional. Still, the president and his brigade are insisting that they want people to start saving. They want people to raise enough tax. Zainab, I watched NTV, the drought situation in this country. 4.5 million Kenyans are starving. You want to raise tax from people who are dying because they have nothing to eat. You want to raise taxes from jobless Kenyans who do not have any job. You want to raise taxes from people who have never gotten services. In my own view, it is a paradox.
But how is it
a paradox?
Okay, in this sense, the government perhaps to look at where they're coming from. So essentially, we have about only about 2 million Kenyans who are paying taxes out of 22 know, who actually, have registered under not KRA, but they have
IDs.
They have identity cards and
M-Pesa.
And M-Pesa services. So I mean, so the government is saying, look, we have all these people, whether in the formal or in the informal sector. So look, let's bring as many people, as many Kenyans into this so that we can at least, be able to ramp up revenue to meet that target that we're talking about. What, 6 trillion collection target by 2027?
That is what I'm saying.
Right.
By virtue of 22 million people having IDs, it is not an ID that generates income. Correct. And that is what Professor Ndungu should advise the president. Having an ID is to avoid the police arresting you that you are a foreigner. The people who have IDs in this country who have never earned 10 shillings per month earn 99%. Number two, M-Pesa accounts. The M-Pesa accounts, it is not for salary, for income. It is for Ishmael and me, when I go to West Mogrango, to send 20 shillings to my mother. So if now there is a tax for receiving money, because what the government is saying, anybody receiving who has an M-Pesa account where Kenyans have opened in anticipation that if they win in gambling or in Betika, they'll be paid for that money. Then you are telling Kenyans, pay tax for opening an M-Pesa account. Really, this government is getting it very wrong. The question, taxation, the first entry for taxation is ability. Does this person generate any income? Graduates in this country, before I left teaching at Catholic University, all the students, all the graduates have no jobs. Then you are saying, we want to tax. Who are you taxing? So let us agree that only the people who are 2 million, who are in the tax bracket, those are almost 100% of those who generate income. And when we are going to the hustlers, you saw the cabinet. The totality of income of the cabinet is almost the budget of the Kenyan government. Why don't we tax those ones instead of looking somebody who carries an ID to avoid the policeman from arresting him? You are telling him, pay taxes.
But you do have yes, Prof, let's begin with you. And I mean the president's proposals isn't just to expand the tax bracket to those in the informal sector, but also talking about increasing taxes for the wealthy as well.
Yeah, the president's proposal, to me, I wish she had made it during elections, because they would have lost elections. The thing is that the president campaigned on the basis of growing the economy. The president is cheating Kenyans when he's telling us that Kenyans don't pay taxes. That same president, during the presidential debate, in fact, he mentioned that when it comes to just a product like petrol, no, in fact, he was talking about KPLC. And he was talking about 15 taxes, which was wrong. There were 9. On that basis, any Kenyan born in this country is paying taxes, including children. As long as you're consuming, the president should have said that is actually targeting payee. And yes, not every Kenyan pays that pay as you earn tax. Simply because the nature of their income, in fact, they don't have income. They get income that's already been taxed. Like Dunstan is saying here, look, I've already been taxed. I work for my farm and I've been taxed. Then I get this money. I use it for anything I use it for. I'm taxed again. And then I send it to my mother now. You want my mother to pay taxes on what I've already been taxed on. Yeah, so the president's core responsibility is actually, we don't mind paying high taxes. In fact, the issue is that I don't want to be taxed, and then on top of that, I get no service. I still pay for the service directly and expensively, be it water, be it security, be it electricity. I pay for school fees for my children and all these other things. So it's actually quadruple, you are taxed 10 times over and over again. In fact, even your tax is taxed. You see, honestly, now we're doing 35%. I would not mind paying 50% tax as long as I got services. But now I pay this tax and I get zero service from government. You've had, I can't even get security from government. I have to pay a Masai, to take care of me. Yeah, so the president is missing the point. No country on earth has ever developed through taxation. We need to actually grow our economy, increase the income of our people, and tax it. Those people who are dying there, people who are selling their cows in Kajiado for 100 shillings, for 500 shillings, you want to put them in the tax bracket. That is what you think is the priority. That is dumb. It's dumb politically. It is dumb and it's doomed. It's not just dumb. Because I would be shocked if his own people in Kenya Kwanza support this sort of totally, useless thing. And the president has already appointed, a team of economic advisors. I'm totally, flabbergasted about this.
But Wakili Ishmael, is it being overly critical of a government that is hoping to take a route that is somewhat going to be different to get a different result?
Look at our inflation, really.
Right.
Sure. The cost of living is crazy.
But what is...
This is the highest we've had like in 60 months.
All right, let's hear from Wakili.
And the only thing you think about is...
I know you're inspired about this.
Right? But is it? By looking at it, Wakili, is it just being overcritical of a government that hopes to take a route that is maybe in its way hoping to change the lives of Kenyans?
Yeah. I want to be fair. It is important to pay tax. William Ruto is a Christian who has been reading the books of the Bible. Habakkuk, there is the one which says you must return to God 10%.
Yes, it's true.
Whether you're poor or you're rich, as in you give only what you have. You cannot give what you don't have.
10% of zero? Yeah, the 10% of zero.
So Zainab, what I want really to deal with is how good is this law that Raila Odinga is telling the president to pursue, that you collect tax according to law. I have discussed tax, rules with a few lawyers. By the way, even we also do not understand critically how taxation is done. Dunstan, today, I know you have a lot of clients in private life. If today you do business with the government, for example, and you issue your invoice of 1 million shillings to the client, say government, do you know the law says that on the date when you issued the invoice to your client, you must send 16% of that invoice to KRA.
Yes.
This is what is wrong with our law. And that is why you find people trying every trick to evade paying the tax, because the government is likely to pay you after 16 years.
Yes.
But you paid tax from your family account to the government, and then the government is not giving you that service. The other problem is this, that if you do not pay, if you don't have the money, you know, if you don't have it in your account to pay it, but you have issued an invoice for payment, and you don't pay for 16 years, you know what happens? They will charge you 10% every other month of the unpaid VAT. So by the end of 16 years, you actually realize you had billed for 1 million, but you realize you owe KRA about 20 million, which is why you saw the Keroche dispute. So I think the law on tax should, there is a way they normally amend it piecemeal, because they don't want, you know, the larger public to understand the law is wrong, and that when you talk about paying tax, I think every Kenyan is willing to do that. Our money is weighted for everywhere, in the supermarkets, in the petrol station. In everything we do, as we pay, there is always that tax, which
the
has
levies
been,
and taxes.
and levies. So I am concerned about the law that makes a poor man, like my colleague said, whose cows are dying, and you're telling him now that we have come to visit you because we intend to help your farm. From today, you have to pay tax. So by the time you actually help him to get his animals to Kenya Meat Commission, you've already taxed him about 300,000, and yet the whole sale of his animals will be 250. So getting Kenyans to be in debt all through because of tax might be the real thing to look at. If you want to save the country, save the people, give them the correct rules. When you get your payment, you must pay tax. You cannot tax me for income that I've not received yet.
Right. Okay. Let's move forward from that.
Very well.
All right. So, okay, just getting there. Gachagua launches drive to create 1 million jobs. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has launched an entrepreneurship drive in partnership with private sector players and targeting to create 1 million jobs for the youth in 1 year. The Kenya Private Sector Alliance initiative, dubbed the Kenya Youth Employment and Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program, seeks to create employment through small enterprises acceleration, market-oriented skills development, and harnessing the digital economy. That happened yesterday. The Deputy President adding that the Kenya Kwanza administration is committed to creating a conducive environment for upcoming and established entrepreneurs, also hitting out at the opposition and urging them to take up their constitutional obligation of providing a fair and honest critique of the government. I'll quote what he says: where we are doing well, encourage us to continue, and where we are doing badly, tell us off. The only praise and worship team we want to come across is on Sunday in our churches. We want the opposition to play their role and provide constructive criticism to the government, because we want to run an open and truthful government. Meanwhile, the DP also has warned officials against theft of relief food meant for those starving. But I think the opposition is sort of taking up its position.
Yes, I mean, they pleaded with the opposition to take the position, and the position is just warming up. I don't think they've even taken their position
But
correctly.
what the Deputy
but
President
these
is
guys are already
asking
complaining.
for an honest and fair critique of the government.
According to who?
fair according to
the opposition does its thing. If the government finds that it's a bit unfair, that's actually fine. But Zainab, the issue here, which I think is more interesting for me in this story, is not coming out in the newspapers. That if government wants to create jobs, the first thing we should be asking ourselves that why haven't governments been creating jobs? And what are those things that make jobs disappear from Kenya to Uganda, for example? We've had industries closing in this country. And this is linked with what we were discussing before.
Right.
That if you want to just tax me to death, I will go to Uganda or Malawi and establish the sugar factories and so on. You see, what you're not seeing here is what the government of the day is doing to attract investors. You cannot come and tell me, Omenya, you create, say 10,000 jobs, and meanwhile, you've created an environment that is totally hostile for my operations, and one of the biggest hostility is a tax. What we want to be hearing is what sort of mechanisms and incentives government is putting in place to enable even these guys of Kenya Association of Manufacturers and others, and even individuals, to actually grow their businesses, employ more people, and the government can then rightly count those as part of the government initiative. Because the government can say, look here, we are the ones who put this mechanism in place, we are the ones who put these tax reliefs in place, we are the ones who put this law in place that enable you to employ 10,000, so we are taking credit as government. So this story is linked directly with the taxation story that we've just finished.
Very quickly.
For me, Zaina, I just want to, for the benefit of my brothers and sisters who are young in this country, we are always complaining that there are no jobs.
Right.
Dunstan professor here will tell you, I mean, you've handled students, you've handled young people. To be honest, apart from creating the jobs, there is actually a deficit of skill.
That's very true.
For who is doing.
Very true.
When Dunstan, you hire a young lawyer, for example, how confident are you? I know you do good interview, you hire and you met a lot of them. How confident are you that I am sending them to Justice so-and-so, and they will represent my client in the best way possible? There is also this aspect that we need to build capacity for the young people to stretch their patience, to be tolerant, and to really go deep into research. So jobs can be found. You heard now the president has abolished the Kazim Tahani and all that. Young people need to do a bit of homework so that they're prepared with the demands of the market.
All right. Dunstan, I don't know if you have anything to add, but we have to take a break. We take a break?
We take a break first.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll look much deeper. Remember, today, the State of the Nation, just a quick look at the government's priorities, realities on the ground. Are they aligned? This is what we have on the Business Daily. Foreigner, 3 Kenyans fight over unfrozen 2.3 billion. State unlocks cash linked to debit card fraud, and 4 battle over company and billions in EcoBank. All right, moving forward on Taifa Leo. Njama ya Ruto kufieka Kalonzo. Atumia wandani wake Ukambani kupunguza umaarufu wa kigogo huyu wa siasa za kieneo, huku akipanga mikakati ya kumtoa pumzi ili endapo kinara wa Azimio Raila Odinga atampokeza mikoba ya kuwania urais, asiwe na nguvu zozote za kumtatiza rais. We'll be back in a short while. The hashtag we're using is MLiveNTV. Talk to us.
My skin is my identity, my strength. It's unique and deserves care made specially for me. New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Advanced Care with 5 oils and 5 vitamins. 48-hour nourishment. Helps reduce appearance of stretch marks in just 2 weeks. New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Advanced Care for your shade of beautiful.
New Sensodyne Repair and Protect with Deep Repair. It's a huge game changer for me. The science is pretty amazing because it really goes deep inside the tooth and repairs tooth sensitivity. I am a happy patient. I will be able to go back to the things that I enjoy eating the most. The science is there. It's going to improve the quality of my life in a big way. The new Sensodyne Repair and Protect with Deep Repair.
Daring Abroad makes me dare.
It's the only show of its kind in the world. And now, it's bigger.
And even more entertaining and informative than before.
Hapa kunaitwa Kakoe na inatubaba sana.
From London to Jersey Island.
Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo to the scenic features of Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
And many more places abroad and at home.
I watch Daring Abroad. I like the stories which people bring.
Daring Abroad every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. with repeats every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. on NTV.
Weeks after a new directive by Kenya's President William Ruto reverted all imported sea cargo clearing services back to this port city of Mombasa, shipping lines are now busy filling in new orders to lease or sell containers as demand rises. I'm here to find out what this means for the country's economy.
I'm driving down a busy Johannesburg road, and we're currently at stage 6 of the load shedding. And as you can see, it's quite dark. The traffic lights aren't operational, and basically all the light that we're seeing right now is coming from other cars. And it's quite a sad indictment of the current state that South Africa currently faces as a result of this consistent and persistent power cuts.
This is hoped to be the first rocket to be launched from the African continent and into the galaxy. It's called the Troposphere 6.
We want to dream like others. We want to participate in the technological development of our country.
To protect our family from germs that cause illness when it's cold, we use Dettol soap.
Dettol soap with germ defense gives you protection. When it's cold, germs are transferred in different ways, and Dettol soap's germ defense protects you from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. We're continuing with the conversation, State of the Nation, looking at the political developments in the country, but then also the priorities of the Kenya Kwanza administration, 2 months in the office. There's an analysis report there on the 12th page of The Standard. We'll be setting the base, at least for our conversation a bit. For his policies to succeed, Ruto should focus on finance reforms. The long-term answers here lies in integrated and seamless digital national identification. The Kenya Kwanza administration under the president and his deputy is hard at work. They are telling us they're determined to change the economic game, which could also change the social and political ones. While the rule of law gets occasional mention, the message of the moment is it's the economy. Well, let's talk about the priorities that the Kenya Kwanza administration, has laid bare, at least for, the beginning of their term in office. I'll begin with you, Ishmael. What do you make of some of the policy directions that the Kenya Kwanza government has made in terms of securing, first of all, the economic situation of the country and some of those other policy directions that we've seen?
I was about to ask you, are there any such a policy? But, considering that, let me tell you, a public is not normally logical. Actually, we help the public to put in context some of these, arguments before and after campaigns. The campaign promises were too many and too good that everybody now feels like they have started to make memes and funny clips online saying, oh, this is what we promised, but this is what you are getting. But if you look at the manifesto, UDA, and Kenya Kwanza as a whole, is brilliant. Completely what we all need is exactly what every Kenyan wants. The question now people are asking is, why are you actually saying this simply to dupe us, to give you votes, and then you renegade on this? Taxes, food prices, fuel prices, the promise was it will come down. And the promise by Kenya Kwanza is we will have money in the pocket. If William Ruto can change today and start on the trajectory he had started earlier, and make sure that prices of food and basic stuff has gone down, and make sure that there's money in the pocket of the people by paying all pending bills, letting the citizens have the money that the government is hoarding. If this can happen, then we will remember the policies. But if you are going to say that, look here, don't talk about now a hustler fund, don't say it will come free, and yet you told the youth that it will be available to anybody carelessly, in the sense that we will not use all these rules that are used by the bank, which means that every youth will actually have money. Now that is not happening. So for me, if you ask me the kind of policies, unless you name one specific or two, the policies under Kenya Kwanza are crumbling because they have not pursued the same intentions they had before the during the campaigns before the elections.
First of all, we do have on the 9th page of the Standard, civil servants to get pay increment in 100 days. This is according to the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Affirmative Action and Gender, Aisha Jumwa, saying that there are plans to increase salaries for civil servants in the next 100 days. You know, this is to civil servants have been demoralized a lot, and we don't want them to see them suffering. They're unable to cope with the high cost of living occasioned by runaway inflation. I am a leader, I'm a mother. I know a majority of public servants are grappling to pay school fees. So it's a sad state of affairs, but I have come to solve the problem so that they can have a dignified life. Well, we have at least 923,000 public servants in the country whose wage bill stands at more than 890 billion annually. Are we able to sustain that, Prof?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is very interesting because one of the challenges that we've had in this country is that unwieldy wage bill. At the end of the day, I mean, where all these resources coming from? And the point that we're trying to raise here is that the Jubilee government promised Kenyans a number of things. They have a written down policy, and I think, honestly, without any fear of contradiction, that this might go in history as the government that fulfilled nothing in their policy within the first year of in office. We know what Jubilee promised in terms of job creation. We know what Jubilee promised in terms of restructuring the economy. We know what Jubilee promised in terms of the high cost of living.
But did they succeed? Right.
There's a point sorry, not Jubilee, UDA. Sorry. We know what the Kenya Kwanza people promised.
Right.
It's there, it's written. My concern, and you could see that when the CSs were being interviewed, you could not, we're just laughing with one of my friends that where did Kenya Kwanza get these guys from? They didn't seem to be aware at all of Kenya Kwanza policies. They seem to have been talking about their own policies and what they actually wanted to do. So what you're seeing here is almost in a government that is incoherent in terms of pushing in the same policy direction. And sadly, this going all the way to the president. Everybody is everywhere saying everything apart from what was written down by this government that they actually intended to achieve. My own advice for them, free advice, is that they are not going to achieve much in 100 days. They should abandon it. They should go back to the core of their policies. They should go back to the core of their policies. They talked about a bottom-up economic policy. I know there are interesting things they put in terms of rural development. I know there are interesting things they put in terms of medium and small businesses, as they actually were. They should go back and ask themselves, what is it that will eventually, that they would eventually be known for? We knew the Kibaki government, for example, with free primary education. We knew them in terms of progress that was made in health. We knew them in terms of the work that was done in infrastructure. The outgoing Uhuru government, we know what they did in infrastructure and services, power, and all those things that cost them the election. Now, the current Kenya Kwanza government must ask themselves, what is the irreducible minimum that would give this government identity, that the Kenyan public that voted them in office would say, look here, we put this government in this place and this particular government has delivered. I just want to highlight one issue, just one issue. And this I'm doing on behalf of hustlers. The hustlers were promised. In fact, I had issues with my Kinyozi because the fellow was saying immediately the president lifts the Bible, there'll be money in his fund on the hustler fund. Telling hustlers to form themselves into cooperatives as the new genius that the government has figured out, and cooperatives have existed in this country even from pre-colonial times as the mechanism of accessing this hustler fund. I mean, this is dead on arrival.
But is it being...
My point is this. Zainab, my bigger point is this, that I am struggling, and yet I'm a reader, I'm struggling to find out anything, just one thing this government is doing that is at the core of their policy and the core of the promises. Something that will tell me that this is the direction Kenya Kwanza wants to take Kenya. I can't find that in the social sphere. I can't find that in the economic sphere. I can't find that on services. I can't find it anywhere. And if anything, the president has spent a lot of time launching projects that Uhuru Kenyatta are done halfway.
When you're looking at, for example, the president has lowered the cost of bags of fertilizers for many farmers in this country, which has been received quite well. This is just one of the things that the government has said. Are we being extremely unfair to a government that says, look, we, according to their own words, we've found a dilapidated economy, an economy that has been run down by the previous administration, so please give us time to fix first the economy.
They found 97 million in treasury.
Zainab, let me come to the rescue of the Kenya Kwanza government. Kenyans are unfairly critical to the William Ruto government. Why do I say that we are becoming unfairly critical for this government? This government has been in place with a head of state and a deputy head for 1 month and around 20 days. Or 2 months, around 1 month and 20 days.
Right.
The cabinet came into force 5 days ago. Now we have a complete cabinet. That cabinet is supposed to deal with the party manifesto called the Hustler Manifesto. When you look at the Hustler Manifesto, it is a revolutionary economic blueprint, just like the Vision 2030. The people who have been appointed cabinet did not engage with that manifesto. They were busy campaigning. The Akinandi who drafted the economic blueprint had no nexus with the people who have come to cabinet, other than Professor Ndumu.
True. Very true.
The only guy who understands that cabinet, that manifesto, is Professor Ndumu.
And it was demonstrated.
And Ndumu, that is why he was not in the ballot. They keep Chumba Murkomen, my client Aisha Juma, who are busy campaigning. Now, and that's what Professor says, during their interview, that is when they started seeing that manifesto. They all failed. It is only Ndumu who provided what that manifesto was.
But what was the campaign pegged on? It was on the manifesto, right?
Campaign,
so they must have known.
I'm saying
right.
the campaign was individual and clan-based to get elected. Now that is why I'm defending this government. That one,
that put the
for now, the cabinet, all those policies called a manifesto will be taken to cabinet. The cabinet will go through and come out with the cabinet memo. That is what Mudavadi will forward to Parliament.
Correct.
Parliament is supposed to have a budget. And I want Kenyans to understand the process. A supplementary budget
to align
of William Ruto that will be aligned with this manifesto. Right now, the budget running is Uhuru Kenyatta budget.
For this financial year.
Very true.
As we are talking now, William Ruto has no budgetary allocation for any of his work. The only problem, and this one, I'm sure everybody is watching under Akina Itumbi, they have a very poor explanatory process. This government has a very poor explanatory process.
Correct.
This is what they should be telling Kenyans.
Correct.
That even the Hustler Fund, it is your members of parliament who you elected will present that draft in parliament. Whatever parliament will pass, William Ruto will sign it, and that is the law. The only problem, and I think that is why Raila Odinga has rejuvenated, the government of the day has failed to have a coherent explanatory process. Their communication system has completely crumbled, because what we hear Gachagua talk is contradictory to what we hear the president talk, is what we hear the people. So if they coalesce and get people like Zainab to deal with their communication channel.
And
also, let me tell you,
went to Naivasha, actually, and the president took them through. I doubt it's about.
They were not listening. That time they were complaining. And finally, and finally, a lot of activism in this government. The people they are sending to media houses to present their agenda are completely doing them disservice.
Correct.
People are coming on NTV here purporting to give the government position.
Yes.
And they don't have that government position.
Correct.
If they also restrain from utterances and first of all ask for... If I was the president at Kasarani when I was being sworn in, that is when I could have put my agenda that this is normally how governments work.
Exactly.
Allow me, not 100 days.
Yeah.
Those are fiction.
Correct.
Allow me 6 months to put the policies together. They go to parliament, and within a year, and he could have reminded them what Kibaki did.
Exactly.
Kibaki
took
policies, this government, in 2002, it was worse than what William Ruto is taking. Kibaki pleaded with everybody and explained what he's going to do, how he's going to do, the timelines on how he's going to do, the challenges he's likely to face, and Kenyans gave him time. The economy peaked from 2014. Not 2014, 2004. From 2000, it was death. 2001, it was even chaotic. But 2013, that is when the economy peaked. So I have given them free advice. Let them stop telling us the stories. Let them tell us that it takes a bureaucratic approach to achieve what they are doing. And even these tax issues we are talking about, they should explain Kenyans. Engage Kenyans.
Right.
The president should call all media houses for an interactive discussion. He admits, he tells people, this is the roadmap. This is the procedure. If they shy away and lock themselves in state house and continue using bloggers, they will fail. And that is why Kenyans are mad. But to me, this is the first time we have a president who understands how to fix the economy. We cannot borrow to run this country. We cannot borrow to run this country. We must generate our income to run this country. We must generate tax from ourselves to run this country.
But you're contradicting yourself.
It is a mistake they are telling people about ideas. They should explain. It is about how they are explaining it.
So it's a communication breakdown?
Their communication breakdown is the reason why William Ruto is going to be the most unpopular president, because of breakdown of communication.
Let's hear
from you.
Know,
Dunstan, I didn't want to heckle when you're talking, but you know, you're very, I didn't want to heckle, meaning, I didn't want to interject there. Yeah, but these are very critical points. Right? Exactly. The moment State House comes out to realize that being honest is a virtue. Like he says, 100 days, what can you do? He should come up and say, look here, my dear hustlers, I promised you 100 days. But having come to the State House, I've realized there is hardly 100 million in the kitty. What you will do, in 100 days, I will organize some, sports activities can be done with hustlers and a few things. But I have realized you need to give me even 1 year or 2.
1 year or 2.
Citizens are very patient. They can wait. But when you lie, you come here, you say, oh, now, Kazim Tahani, that will not work, this will not. You are still being populist when you are actually in office. I think the advisors to the president should do their correct homework.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Prof.
And that's what you're adding, that we know that some of the problems that Kenya has are structural problems. I would liken this with somebody who has been brought in to restructure almost a bankrupt organization. You don't expect that this guy in day 2, day 3, you'll be seeing results. I know, in fact, yesterday I was talking with an individual who has been struggling with a very big business. I will not mention it here because I don't have their consent. And he was very excited The banks, the lenders had run away from them and so on. And it's taken 5 years of hard work to post profit for the first time, you know, in the last 5 years. But most of this had to do with the structural issues. You know, coming in, reorganizing the company, looking at the asset base, you know, seeing what you can liquidate and what you cannot, and so on. In fact, they had to downsize the entire business, you know, to keep it a bit leaner. In fact, he was telling me that he was even happy that COVID came, because then he was able to, that enabled them to basically reduce their workforce and so on. My point is very simple, that coming to run a well, you know, managed organization and so on, you can promise quick results. However, the state the country is in, really, I mean, the president doesn't need to tell us that. We've made a lot of noises around debt, around our development expenditure, all these things around taxes and so on. This would require a little bit of time to structure that properly. And I agree with Dunstan and Ishmael on this 100%, that government should be telling us that, look here, on the issue of taxation, this is our end game. And you may not see anything much in the first 100 days. You may not see anything much in 1 year, but after that you'll start seeing the change. On the debt, this is our direction. We want to bring these debt levels to this percentage in the next 5 years. In the first 1 year, you may not see much, because we may even, just like Obama administration when they got into power, they actually had to ramp up debt, and that's one of the issues that they're dealing with. Because to just keep the economy at the level where it was, you need to borrow more, but then have a strategy of consistently reducing that down on issues like job creation and so on. Some of these things you can put systems and structures now, but those systems and structures will not deliver results now.
Right.
But having said that, there is always, in organizations, there are always quick wins. You can clean up the place, you can paint a building, it might not cost you much. So two things are happening here which is concerning. That this particular government is deleterious of very simple things that they don't need to touch, like Kazim Tan. I mean, those youths are getting some little money, leave them alone. And if there are small, quick wins that you can actually do, proceed and actually do them. They should not worry too much about dismantling the government approaches. Because you look at even that Kazim Tani thing, it was not a structural program within government. Anyway. It was actually a relief, a short-term relief. And it came particularly during COVID to ensure that the youth had something in their pocket. So all these things, including even the subsidies and so on, some of those were meant to have been short-term. But you come and you remove them fast, because it's always easy to delete. It's always easy to destroy. It's always easy to pull down things. And you're replacing them with nothing. And meanwhile... But
don't you feel like then this is a government
I will give them a very good example. And this is legend in my village. There's a guy who got a job in Nairobi here, and a long time ago, from my village, and this guy then decided that the village was quite backward and needed to be redeveloped. So what the guy did was to burn the huts that were in the village. So he burnt all the huts, and then when he started rebuilding, he found out that he could not only build one house. And this guy became very unpopular. So huts may be a sign of backwardness, but they're serving a purpose in the interim. Take your time, build one house at a time, and then pull down the hut. Don't pull down the hut without building the houses, because you may be the laughing stock of Ojijoteko from our village many years.
But look at it this way. I mean, you're finding a government in a tight spot where the people are calling for instant results, right? This is a government and everyone is calling for, we need this, you promised this, all right? And so the government puts in measures that hopefully in the long run, it hopes that will relieve Kenyans of this economic burden that we're facing. Let me give you an example. First of all, let me just give you one example. You have the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which is preparing once again to institute fresh demands to the newly elected government to cut public spending. They're talking about increasing taxes. They're talking about increasing taxes and the likes. I'm going to get some of those prescriptions, austerity measures. Don't you feel like the government is sort of really trying hard to create a balance in this? By
I did tell Kenyans like this. In the ballot of 9th, there was a Chinese president called Raila Odinga. And there was an American president called William Ruto. In terms of policies, William Ruto is moving towards the IMF, and they are going to cause a lot of problem because they have already said job cuts.
Correct.
They have already said less salaries for expenditure and more money in the, not in the current expenditure, but in that. So those are the questions I've said. This is the best government Kenyans ever had. Imagine the three of us. If we had the government policies and we articulating government policies from this platform, we have a reach to the nation. They need to call. There's a time, I think, in 2013, 2014, when President Uhuru Kenyatta had to call all his critics, especially from the media, to State House. And he had to tell them, this is how the situation is, this is what is happening. If they are barricading themselves at State House and expect Kenyans to understand where the predicament is, I did put it like this. Let President William Ruto and his team call the people and explain to them, this is the situation we are in. I know there are many people I represent in the family courts. A man is sacked, but he continuously leaves home with a tie. He's not telling his wife that Omari has sacked me or I've been sacked from the job. For 6 months, he's ever living pretending that he has a job. But he must continue meeting the bills. There will reach a time he will not be able. I've advised the president and I've advised his cabinet and I've advised his handlers that let them come to the Kenyans, let them explain the hard facts, let them call a rally at Uhuru Park, let them explain to the hustler, Kenyans are very understanding. Let me tell you, Kenyans are very understanding. The hiding behind the military and the GSU barricades will make President William Ruto's government the most unpopular. As we sit here, we are not getting it right. 2, he went for cabinet ministers who are politicians. He should get them inducted to understand the manifesto so that they go to the people, explain to the people, this is how things are done. So in my own view, the government is the right government. Everything is right. Only one mistake. How do they handle the communication between government and the voters? That is where they have failed.
Yes, Ishmael.
From campaigns, yes.
Yeah, sure. I think, Zainab, my issue, the way I look at it is the approach advanced or given by the president. And when I look at how he's handling issues right away, he's started with security, now he's gone to tax. And you know, these are the most sensitive matters. Security and money. He appears to me to be that during his young age, probably the boy who goes to the field, finds a bull is running to him, and is ready to attack it. I mean, probably even with bare, hands, without anything.
But remember, he is a man who's been, second in command over the past 10 years. He's been in government, so he sort of understands what the issues the Kenyans are facing, and that's why he's taking the bull by the horns. Right?
Zainab, communication is very important, because you may think that people have heard what you have communicated, but they've actually gotten message in the other way around. All the president now wants to do, like we have all said, is to ensure that he sends the message that don't be frustrated in the coming 1 year. If you don't see the things I promised you. Instead of saying, sinilowambia kazi ya mtaani sio muhimu na sinimewachisha. You know, all those kind of things, they are kind of populist.
And Zainab, as Ishmael is putting it there quite eloquently, I think what you're trying to simplify here is that there was campaign rhetoric. That campaign rhetoric, put it aside. There's the reality of running the state and the country that is Kenya. Come come quite clearly. Of course, some things that you promised in the campaign may apply here. Come clearly with the diagnosis, with prognosis, come clearly with the end game. And that is what government should be communicating.
Yes, yes.
They should forget about the promises they gave Kenyans, even as we know that a lot of those things were hogwash.
Yes.
They should come in and tell us that now they're in charge, they're in business of running government, and they're going to take us to this particular destination that is not a campaign destination.
Right.
It's actually a realistic destination of running a government from this particular situation. The problem is that if they don't do that, they may even drive in the reverse.
So that is going to be interesting to see, at least in the next couple of weeks.
So they will they always listen to NTV.
All
They
right.
will
So
I'll tell you,
that?
they'll come out to explain to Kenyans
All right.
what we are asking.
Wilson Masaka on Twitter saying great insights on the taxation issue from the panel. He quotes Winston Churchill saying, "We contend that for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle." But then also again, Peter Ambuka saying, "These are the same gentlemen, panelists, who never believed Ruto would be president. Here they are again criticizing the government. You mean you see nothing good in Ruto?"
I mean, of course, it's important we do
We
that.
have seen a lot of goodness in the president.
We have not come here to
All
praise
we are
Ruto.
only saying.
Okay.
We have come here to advise.
We are advisors.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Wakili Danstan Omari, Ishmael Nyaribo, and Professor Alfred Omenya. That is M Live. This is where we wind up, but don't go away. Winnie Lubembe will be coming up in shortly with Your World, so stay with us. My name is Zenab Ismail. Till next time, have yourself a good day and good morning.